Isabel, thank you so much for joining FF News' coverage of Sibos 2022. How are you doing?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me. It's exciting.
Pleasure. So, Isabel, could you tell our viewers your name, your job role, and your organisation, please?
My name is Isabel Schmidt. I work at BNY Mellon and I co-head the payment product team.
Amazing. Now, payments have gone through such a wealth of change. In fact, probably the most out of any vertical in finance. What have been some of the biggest trends that have caught your eyes post-pandemic?
So I think what's really important, and it's actually a trend that goes a little further back than pandemic, but probably accelerated by what we've seen over the last few years. It really is a fundamental switch to digitization, front to back, really, from the initiation point to the very end point of the transaction in its life cycle. And it's really exciting because we see this clearly in the retail space, driven by consumer experiences in other areas, but we actually see it happening and trickling through other client segments as well. And that is a huge transformation over the last few years, and gives us plenty of opportunity for change.
Yeah. Now, with that in mind, we're seeing customers go from customer expectations from what they want from a payment to customer demands. No longer can a bank just offer a simple payment system, and if it goes wrong, then they'll sort it out. You have to be on 365 days, 24/7. How does BNY Mellon look to go about that? How do you guys spearhead staying at the forefront of payments?
So I think it's a combination of things that one really has to do to achieve this. One is, as you said, staying on top of customer demands, so really understanding what's driving the underlying needs. Nobody gets up in the morning and buys a payment, right? So a payment is kind of a knock-on effect of something else, and understanding how, therefore, that payment experience fits into what's happening to your client. What are they trying to do? And it doesn't matter whether it's a retail client or whether it's a business client. Just understanding those business processes is absolutely fundamental, right? So that's one. The second piece, I think, is understanding everything that's happening in the marketplace. So as you said, it's a very dynamic time in this industry. There is evolution of existing payment systems. Those still they're there. They continue to exist. We continue to operate them. They fill and fulfill a certain need. They continue to evolve. And then there's new payment systems, as we know. Real-time payments is developing at really fast speed globally. So staying on top of that and understanding those trends, and then understanding how do you stitch an ecosystem that's getting more and more complicated. How do you stitch that together for customers to make it simple? And that's really what we're trying to do.
Amazing. And I'm going to add another layer of complexity onto that. When you look at cross-border payments, talking about connecting ecosystems, we're starting to see in the States, for instance, with FedNow, and we're starting to see institutions offer up more seamless cross-border payments. What have been the sticky-ish challenges, issues, and what are the opportunities that are now presenting this ecosystem with offering fast, reliable, cheap cross-border payments?
So in terms of sticky issues, I think there are a few. One is, and take us back to the beginning, is maybe lack of digitization, right? So the cross-border payment ecosystem was established 40 years ago at a time where business was being done very differently, right? And yet we haven't transformed the rails and the infrastructure. So that's I think a major pain point. I think another major pain point is when it's our lovely word of regulation and inconsistency in what is required across the globe, which always is creating friction. And again, the third is all of these new payment systems, and how do you make sense of it? How do you connect? So all of these pieces create friction. They create hurdles to delivering a really fast and seamless payment experience. And so I think the things that are happening at the moment that everybody's talking about and that are at the forefront of our minds that we need to try to solve is creating rails that allow payments to travel seamlessly, and ISO 20022 is a big element of that strategy of creating these seamless rails. SWIFT is doing a lot of work in trying to connect the dots between the banks and creating capabilities to allow faster payments, more transparent payments, seamless and predictable. So that's a key element as well that we're seeing. And then finally, I think the real-time payment systems, and connectivities between those, such as IXB, are important trends. All of this to eliminate friction and make the experience faster.
Amazing. Now you actually touched on the international standard I wanted to bring up, and that is ISO 20022. Yep. Having that enhanced data set, that means so much for your customers. Can you tell us about BNY Mellon's uptake of the standard, what it was like, and what's it going to mean in the future for your customers?
So the first thing I have to say is we're not live yet. The industry is counting down the days now to the end of November when it's going live on the SWIFT network for cross-border payments, and the European payment systems are going live. So a lot of preparations across the industry globally. I think the biggest lesson learned probably from what we've seen over the last 2 to 3 years, which is when banks really started going into this, is it's complicated. It really is difficult. It's easy to underestimate the complexity, the amount of learning organizations have to do, and the depth of change that we have to go through, not just from the core payment systems, but everything else that goes around. And then, as you said, there is the question of, if we have to do all this work, how can we get to a better data environment and treating data more intelligently than we have in the past? And again, that requires actually quite a bit of work. One is the technical rails to carry the data, but you have to have the data first, right? And which on one hand means effort on the banks handling their own data, the data that they have on clients, but it also means the touch points with customers who are initiating payments or receiving payments and reconciling those have to be upgraded as well. Clients have to be educated. So I think in terms of really rich structured data, we're probably going to see this a little further down the road. Once the standard is established, the industry knows how to use it, and then we can really leverage the power of that data, and that's going to be really exciting.
It is absolutely fascinating, and you have such a hard job because people, as we've talked about previously in the conversation, they don't just have expectations now, they have demands from their payments, and you have to be always on. So I can imagine it's such an incredible task that you've been given. Now, speaking of, you brought up obviously what Swift have been working on. Obviously we're seeing Swift GPI a couple of years ago, seeing that increased transparency, but we're coming here today all together at Sibos 2022. What are you excited for the most?
I don't know. This is as if you were asking me what's my favorite child, right? I am excited about the conversation that we're having around ISO. I am excited about the work that Swift is doing, around Swift Go, which was, launched a while ago, but, we are starting to see traction. And like many things, Swift, the true value of what we're doing in the network is the network effect, the distribution across all of the 11,000 banks that are on Swift. So seeing the traction in the industry and really, what used to be a proof of concept now turning slowly into reality, that really is exciting. I'm excited about the things that Swift has down the road, which is why we need to get ISO behind us, right? That relate to how we handle richer data, how we can use it for better risk management processes, how we can use it for elimination of friction in the payment flow, for data validation, data integrity. All of these things are really fascinating. Validation services that you can now do upfront, so you can actually be sure that your payment goes through, that it doesn't stop, right? We couldn't do this before, and having all of these new capabilities will be really very, very powerful. So I'm actually looking forward to the dialogue this week, and just getting the industry aligned and excited on what is going to be a lot of work, quite frankly, but it's definitely worth it.
Isabel, it's been an absolute pleasure getting your insights. Absolutely fascinating.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.